Hey everybody, Michael Gevin here from Create Insights with Tom Antos. Super excited to have him here with us today and taking time out of his busy schedule. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So this is super exciting, guys. We're welcoming some new people on the call today. Any of you in guest mode, you're going to be able to interact in the chat or submit a question. But to do that, if you're in guest mode, you've got to log in. When you try to do either one, you log in via Facebook or Twitter, and you'll be ready to rock and roll. And so basically what will happen is we'll do a little interview here at the beginning and kind of ask Tom some questions, and he'll give us his answers. And then the second half of the show, we're going to take your questions. So if you've got pressing things that you've always been curious about, that you've wanted to ask Tom but never could, now's your opportunity to do it live. So the second half of the show, right below Tom, it says submit a question. You'll just do that. You'll queue up your question, and you'll be good to go. So let's see here. I think that's about it, guys. So we're super excited about this show today, and let's just get it going. So Tom, just give us a little background up front for people that may not know of kind of how you got into video, just in
Um,
general.
okay, I guess I got into it like the early start was I started working on animated film, and it's kind of because like I guess a lot of people have these childhood dreams, when you're like growing up and you have a little video camera. I always wanted to work in films. I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and then in high school, I think I kind of figured out, I'm okay, I guess, as an artist when it comes to drawing. So I figured, I could probably apply it to animation. So I started really just kind of learning it throughout high school, and then right after high school, I got a job as on an animated feature film. And then after that, I mean, I worked in animation for like straight on for like 5 years, but then I started getting more into live action, and that's simply because of the animation work. Like a lot of my work was FX based and that kind of stuff. So I was showing up more on actual sets, movie sets, supervising, for example, like the filming of the shots for the special effects part of it. And I realized that I enjoyed being on set more than sitting behind the computer all the time. So then slowly I kind of started thinking, well, maybe I could one day like start filming again with a camera and doing stuff. And I didn't know how to get into it, especially when I already had like a comfortable job in animation. And it's and I knew all the people there. I knew how the industry worked, and I had no idea like how do you become a director. But then I guess the best advice that I got was from a friend of mine who was doing music videos, and he just told me to start doing music videos. Because music videos is probably well, one of the easier ways to get into directing pretty much anything, whether it's commercials, films, corporate videos, whatever you want to do. So that's kind of how I started doing it. So first I did music videos, sort of freelance, while I still worked in animation, and then when that work picked up, I eventually just did it full time and opened my own company.
Perfect, man. So, like I had said, one of the things we talk about on here is the business side of things. So, so many people struggle in so many different ways to either they have their full-time job and they want to go full-time doing video, or they're doing video and they just can't figure out how to get any work. For you, what was that thing? So you had an animation job, but then from there, what were some of your strategies, in regards to were you getting paid when you did some of these other things outside of it? And how did that kind of work out for you to be able to then start your own company and go from there?
Well, I guess I knew right from the start that if I was going to do music videos, I had to, I guess I had to sort of find the best place to advertise myself. And I knew that, for music videos, there's no way you can just place some advertising somewhere, an ad in a newspaper or somewhere, because that's not where musicians look. So I kind of figured, and I guess a lot of this was I was testing out the waters, and I wasn't sure what's going to work and that. So I did a lot of different things, but I guess the technique that worked for me the best was um, I invested a lot of money into equipment. That was the big thing I did right away, which my animation job, I guess, allowed me to do that. And I kind of, did some little tests, all that stuff. But then I basically just went out, and I was based in Toronto at the time, and I just went to pretty much any musician that I thought that had kind of some exposure, especially here in Canada. And I would just approach them and tell them, I can do, a music video for you guys, for free. And in exchange, you guys, promote me, like, make sure, like, you put my name on the video and that kind of thing. And I went around, and I was actually surprised how many people turned me down, even though I was offering free service. Many people, and I guess it made sense because I was a talented animator, but I had done 0 music videos at that point. But I went around, and then it actually started with this. There was this one guy who was this hip hop artist in Toronto, and he got into a lot of media attention at the time. But he was completely independent musician. But he got a lot of media attention because of this music video that he did, kind of a very bare bones kind of a street music video. Got a lot of attention because of some violence and aspects of it, like that. And a lot of people started talking about it here on television in Canada. So I kind of just right away thought, well, the guy seems like he's talented. Everybody's talking about him. Let's approach him. And I approached him, and he was right away like, hell yeah, let's do a music video. So I did a music video, and that music video right away, that was like the first really, official music video that I did. Right away got on television, got like a lot of airtime. And it was, that made a very big difference at the beginning because right away I started getting other artists and, calling me basically asking me to do the music video for them. And it was funny, I actually ended up doing like 3 other music videos for that guy for free. Because you know how it is, once you do a job for somebody for free, they're never going to really pay you after that. But I didn't mind. The guy was so cool, and he was pretty much, advertising, my Tom Antos brand.
But that's the thing, too, that I think people take for granted a lot of times is that, sometimes the free work you do doesn't mean that you're going to get more work from them, but when you're doing it for someone that's going to give you publicity, that's worth, any payment that you could have gotten. Because sometimes when you get paid for jobs, you get no recognition, so it's just like you got the money, but that was it. But because you did somebody recognizable, that was worth way more. So, I mean, And
actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because I kept that up, pretty much, until now. That's kind of how I work. Is that, I guess I have enough paid work where I don't have to do it, but every so on, I will take on projects if I think it's, either if I think the idea, like if somebody approaches me with an idea that's so original, so creative that I think it's going to get a lot of attention, or if the person, itself has a lot of attention. Like, for example, a few years later, I sort of got into YouTube, and the way I guess, started growing my channel was I realized, again, let's do some free work with other people. People who already have a big audience on YouTube. And the first sort of, I guess, recognizable name on YouTube that I worked with was Daystorm. At that time, I think he had like almost 500,000 subscribers, this was in 2011, which was a lot of, for me especially, it was a lot. I had, I think, like 2,000 subscribers. And I called him up, send him an email, kind of kept on emailing him until he replied, or his assistant did. And I just straight up told him, like, I have an amazing idea for a video. I'll do it for you for free. I'll fly you to Toronto. You put it on your channel. You can monetize it, do whatever. Just make sure you put my name there. And he's like, hell yeah, okay, let's do it. What's your idea? I pitched it to him. He liked it, and that was it. And I remember even some of the people that I was already working with at the time, like here in Toronto, they kind of looked at me like crazy, like they were asking me, why are you doing this? You're already in a position where you don't really have to do free work, let alone actually pay somebody, and because I had to fly the guy in, I had to get a hotel for him, all that stuff. But you know what? It was a great investment because on YouTube it made a huge difference. I remember I went when that video was released with him. I think in a day I went from like 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers to like almost 20,000.
20,000.
Yeah, that makes a very big difference. Yeah.
See, guys, I mean, I think that that's something that we all take for granted, and I think the biggest thing is fear. People are so afraid to ask someone big or anything else for anything, but beyond asking, I want everybody to take note, and we teach this all the time. You didn't just say, hey, put my video on your channel, or hey, I got a video, put it up on your channel. You offered value to this guy. So you're paying for everything, you're doing everything. And talk about the value for things you've done, not just asking, but asking and giving value first.
So can you say that again?
Oh, sorry. Just talk about the aspect of providing value to somebody and giving them something instead of just asking them to do something for you. Like instead of just saying, hey, promote me on your channel, you said, hey, promote me on your channel, but I'm going to do this.
Well, I mean, I mean, I guess one thing that I realized right away, and maybe it's because when I worked on animated films, I had a chance to work with like Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, like big names, and I saw that the people, those kind of people of that caliber, the reason why they really get hired is not because they're necessarily the only person for that job. I mean, like say Whoopi Goldberg, she's a great actress, but I'm sure there's a lot of other great actors out there who could do the same job as her, maybe even better. But the reason why she gets hired with other, recognizable names is because again, they have already a following. They have an audience that, a crowd of people that watches their work. And so that in itself is a huge asset. So I knew right away that I was going to approach somebody with that kind of an audience, like let's say Daystorm. And he already had, so many subscribers, so many people watching his videos, that if I was just going to email him out of the blue and just say, hey, I love your work, let's do something together, he's just going to be like, well, whatever, who are you? Now, if I offered something, and I remember in the email I did write like a very quick description of sort of what my idea was, and that's also another thing I realized, that when you want to, like a lot of these people, that you would consider, recognizable names, whether it's actors or anybody in the media, they are approachable. But the thing is that because they get so many requests, you sort of think of it like your little email or your phone call. You gotta really plan it out, almost as if it's a pitch. Like if you're gonna pitch a movie idea to a studio network, because they don't have that much time. So if they have to go through a few hundred emails in one day, you want to make sure that in the first sentence you put something that's gonna spark their interest. And I remember my email was maybe like 2 sentences long to him, but it was like to the point. I wrote basically sort of establishing who I am, what I've done, what my idea is, and then here's what I'm offering to you, kind of thing. And again, and that didn't even work right away, because later on, as I found out, Daystorm doesn't even look through his emails. He has an assistant, and so his assistant deleted my first 2 emails. But I just kept on emailing again and again, and then eventually his assistant got to my email and got back, and that's kind of how it worked. And that's also how, like right now, I'm not at the point maybe that Daystorm is, but I do get a lot of requests, like even just for work. I get a lot of requests, people asking me to shoot their short film or do, all kinds of work, music videos. And I guess, I'm in a position where I can sort of pick and choose who I want to work with. And so I will look at I try to go through all the emails, but between the emails, where I get clients requesting me for work, and then the emails from fans and things like that, it's a job, in itself. It takes so much time that I honestly, even though it's very nice when people send me very long emails and, thanking me and all that stuff for let's say, teaching them for free on YouTube, I can't possibly actually read all the emails, especially the long ones. Like if that's like sort of to the point, 1 or 2 sentences, I'll read it and I'll get back to the people. And I guess that's sort of like when it comes to strategy, if you're going to try to contact somebody. But yeah, I mean, I also just realized that if, getting in touch with somebody who already has an audience is a huge asset, and it's I guess it's the equivalent of literally paying for airtime on a big network television station and literally putting your advertisement on there, which I think is not as effective actually, because advertising, I think we're so trained to watching advertising, whether it's online or on television, that we just automatically shut it out, and we're not paying attention to that stuff. Whereas if you have somebody that has an audience, and that audience just follows that person, respects that person, if that person just mentions your name, that is worth 1,000 times more than having your commercial that you're playing on some big networks. So that's also one thing that I try to do.
Absolutely, I love that. Well, a big thing I put in the chat: persistence, guys. persistence is key. I'd love, just out of curiosity, you know, I never even ask this sometimes, but, you know, I've done the same thing to be able to get to big people, that aspect of like, send an email, not caring if it's going to happen or not. The worst thing that's going to happen is you get a no, but you get a no when you don't ask. But how many times, like I've gotten lucky a few times, like I mentioned the Tony Robbins thing and Tim Ferriss, a couple of these. All I did was send an email. But I got lucky on both of those, and I got responses the first time around. Like, how many times did you email that one person to finally, you know, get through, if you don't mind me asking?
Like Daystorm, I forgot how many times. Maybe it was like 10 times. It wasn't as bad. But I remember, like, you know, my production company, we produce scripts, like feature film scripts, and we try to get big names attached to them. And I remember one of the cases, for example, we had this a few years back. We had this sort of a romantic comedy script that we were trying to get sold. And we were trying to get somebody, some kind of a big recognizable name attached to it. And I remember somebody just suggested to me, you know, Jennifer Aniston would be perfect for it. And I thought to myself, okay, there's no way I'm going to get Jennifer Aniston to read the script. Well, you know, that's kind of what I ended up sort of doing, like you're saying, is literally trying to find any opportunity I could without, you know, coming up as some, you know, psychopathic, I don't know, stalker or something. Like doing it, you know, I guess the professional legal way, whether it's going to her agent or at a film festival, something like that. And eventually we actually got in touch with her and got her, I guess, to look at the script. In the end, it turned out she wasn't interested. But you know what I mean? Like, it is possible. It's you know, even people of that caliber. It's just you have to be, you sort of have to, like I said, think from their point of view. You got to realize that if a person of that caliber is so busy and has so many people, you know, contacting them, you gotta sort of make it precise, you know, to the point, and really offer them something that's going to spark their interest. And if you do it enough times, eventually they will respond. And also, I guess maybe it's because my work as in animation industry. I remember when, you know, I guess I was lucky enough to get a good paying, you know, a steady job in animation, and right out of high school, and I didn't have to go to college or anything like that. And I remember that while I was already working, like a few years in animation, we would be getting daily, and I worked at different animation companies, but I remember one particularly when we did this big feature film project, daily, I'm not joking, we would get like 100 to 200 demo reels. DVDs, VHS at that time, still people use. And so we would get all this stuff. So, you know, and there was really nobody at our company, you know, dedicated to just sitting and watching all those tapes. So what our, you know, some of the producers would do is they would sometimes give us an extra long lunch, pay for our lunch, like order pizza or something, and they would just say, guys, can you sit down and just watch through these demo reels? And if something, you know, looks good, just let us know. And I remember that's what me and some of the other animators used to do, is just we used to watch some of these tapes, but like I said, there's just, it wasn't possible to go through all the tapes. And the way that we used to watch those tapes, you know, it's kind of, at the beginning I actually felt bad doing this, but I remember we would watch a tape and maybe watch like the first 5-10 seconds. If it didn't look good, we would throw it in the garbage. Because it was just not possible for us to watch the whole tape. And some people had tapes that were like 10, 15 minutes long. And, you know, and so I realized that in order to get a job, and the people that ended up getting those animation jobs were people who had sometimes demo reels that were as short as 15, 20 seconds. But they put the best stuff out there, and you know, later on, as we found out, some of them kept on sending and resending these you know, tapes until somebody, you know, looked at them. That's kind of how I got it. You know, I got my first job in animation too. I mean, I didn't go to school, but I just kept on sending out all these tapes to all these companies, and eventually one of them called me back.
I love this talk today because you're hitting a chord with me that I really, really believe in, which is, you know, persistence, sticking out, you know, sticking out from the crowd. I mean, guys, there's a theme here today that Tom's talking about, and that's that everybody everywhere is busy. And if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to get connected with somebody, you've got to stick out from the crowd. You've got to create value. You've got to have something awesome. And on top of that, the persistence aspect, because sometimes everything you're doing is perfect, except for one thing, timing. The timing's just off. Maybe that person you email just went out of town for the next 3 weeks, and so they're barely checking their email, but they keep getting the same amount of emails. So it gets lost. They don't look at those old ones. Then they come back. But if you only so many people, I'm blown away, and you probably know this on some level, like so many people will do thing one time and they won't get a response or they won't get anything and they feel that they've failed. But I brought up Tim Ferriss before the call. 27 times his book was turned down before it got picked up. 27 times, and the average person would go after the first time, well, my book must suck, and then give up. But you can't give up. And you said short. I think that's important. And talk about that in regards to what you've found out with like even YouTube. I know that you do produce longer videos, but I don't know if you've ever looked at like the engagement or anything. Do you have any stats on the idea of whether when you're doing things on YouTube that short truly is better, or do you get away with certain types of content with having them be 5 and 10 minutes long?
I wouldn't say necessarily that short is better. It's just sort of, I guess I think the length of whatever it is that you're doing, but it's specifically online, has to be as short as you can make it while still telling your story, whatever your story is. And I guess that's what I kind of learned the hard way, especially on YouTube. Because if you get somebody, if you're doing a traditional film and you get them in a movie theater or you get them buying your DVD, they're kind of already committed to watching the whole thing. So even if you add little extra scenes, little extra dialogue that's not 100% necessary to tell the story, people are going to stick around and they're going to watch it. Online, because people are so easily distracted and there's so many things happening, whether it's somebody on Facebook messaging them or they're, checking email, things like that, you want to make sure that video is only as long as it really has to be to tell that story. And even if you have like something like a little funny scene, or a little shot maybe, where your actor did something funny, like a little face or something, that's an extra 2 or 3 seconds, I cut it out if it's not necessary to tell the story. Because I realized that, the shorter you can make it, the better it is in that sense. But, without obviously sacrificing the story. Now that kind of brings me to, I guess, another point when it comes to like YouTube. YouTube is great for getting attention on that stuff, but I'm not sure if it's a great venue, or at least not right now, for just filmmaking. So if you're just interested in filmmaking, it's not maybe the best place because, like I said, because people are so distracted. They're not going there, most of the time they're not going there to just sit down and watch your piece of work. They're kind of browsing around. They're not sure what they want. So you kind of got to make it very precise to the point. But it's a great way to market yourself on YouTube, and then maybe hopefully get that person to maybe watch the full-length version of your project or things like that. Because I found that if you do like a film where let's say you want to play around with the pacing or build up suspense, for example, it doesn't work on YouTube. It just doesn't work. That's why YouTube, quick, especially funny, that kind of stuff, it works better for you.
Well, so would you suggest people, there's lots of talk, Vimeo, YouTube, all these different platforms. Do you utilize Vimeo at all for your film?
I do use Vimeo.
That works out better?
I don't know if it works better. I mean, I find Vimeo is it's more of a sort of a filmmaking kind of crowd. So that's one maybe thing that's better. Like, I mean, people are more respectable. Whereas on YouTube you pretty much get anybody. People who go to watch dancing cat videos, to people who want to watch news and things like that. Not necessarily artistic kind of creative kind of expression, or short little films. So that's the difference with Vimeo. I never really got big on Vimeo, simply never got into it. I do have an account there, and I do upload my tutorials there. But I guess I never got into it simply because YouTube was the first one to offer HD. YouTube was sort of like the first one at offering a lot of these services, and especially offering them for free. Whereas Vimeo, I kind of found was always behind. But I think Vimeo is a great platform, and especially because they're kind of focusing more on quality work as opposed to, I guess, quantity. So that's one great thing on Vimeo versus YouTube. But then again, when it comes to getting honest opinion, I think Vimeo is not as good as YouTube. I know some people don't like the you get all those haters and things like that on YouTube, but I prefer to get an honest opinion, even if it's somebody who's just having a bad day and they're just gonna write something really rude. If it's not personally attacking me and things like that, it never gets really to me. I'm okay with criticism, and I find that you can learn a lot from criticism. Whereas on Vimeo, that's actually something that I miss. Maybe it's because everybody, like most of the people they're watching, are other filmmakers and they know how hard it is to do something. that they're almost afraid to trash your work. And I think if you never have your work trashed, you're never going to learn from your mistakes. Because like I said, on Vimeo, just the fact that on Vimeo you don't have a dislike button. You can only have a like button. And you can only click if you like something. So that in itself is right away, it's something that sets YouTube and Vimeo apart. So. I think we're having some technical difficulties. All right, if you guys have any questions, just let me know.
I'm back. I don't know what happened. Just my whole browser just shut down.
Okay.
Perfect. I'm back. So that's the great thing about Spreecast, I will add, and I'll take a little break here for just a second. Even if we lose anybody, the Spreecast just still stays active. So we never really, until I hit end Spreecast, it just keeps going. So if it happens to happen again, just keep rocking and rolling. But guys, for anybody new here, we've got a lot in guest mode. We're going to be taking your questions here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. And so basically, right below me now, it was below Tom, but now we swap sides. Right below me, it says submit a question. If you're in guest mode, it'll ask you to log in via Facebook or Twitter. If you have questions for Tom that you want him to answer, don't put them in the chat. I'm trying to keep track of things there, but make sure you use the submit a question. In the next 10 or 15 minutes, we'll take those questions and he'll answer those. If you guys are loving this, we'd truly appreciate if you share this on Facebook or share it on Twitter. The more people, the better. We're really trying to make an impact in video professionals' lives. We know that there's a big hole out there for kind of the business side of things and inspirational side of things for video professionals to, take action and get results, on the business side. Tom's been phenomenal in helping people on YouTube, with technology and lighting and all those kind of fun things in filmmaking. But we're trying to bring out the business side of things here. So if you guys would just be so kind to share that, I'll try to put a link here. That's what I was doing when my whole thing shut down. But I'll try to put a few links here that you can share. But there should be things right above this call too that you can share. I'll make sure that you're all, if some of you didn't somehow, you're on Spreecast or whatever, you're not on this page, make sure that right here there's like buttons and tweet buttons and everything on the Expert Interrogations page. And guys, so we keep you notified of future calls, be sure to just get on our email list. We try to make sure we keep you notified every week, and I know a lot of guys have a hard time remembering these calls, so we always send you a reminder email right before we go live. So all right, well, let's keep moving here. We'll take about 10 more minutes of I'll ask you some more questions, and then essentially we'll take the audience's questions. So not sure where we cut off right there when what you were talking about. What were you talking about?
I was talking about Vimeo, like the difference between Vimeo and YouTube.
Perfect. So what would be kind of the biggest advice that you could give somebody? We talked about some stuff that you already talked about, but what is something? Well, let me step back. All right.
Yeah.
Little technical difficulties, guys. Sorry, computer's acting up today. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But basically, your brother is your business partner. Talk for a second about the idea of having somebody fill in where you're weak. Because a lot of us try to do absolutely everything. And it doesn't mean you need an army or a big team or a whole bunch of employees. But talk about the aspect of having somebody to fill in where you're weak,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started my company. It was just myself. But I guess, my brother actually studied business, and he always worked in that, he worked in, financial institutions and things like that. But I guess, he always sort of was interested in the creative side. So at a certain point, I just approached him, and just simply because I realized that it got to a point where, I guess, taking care of just the business side of, whether it's promotion or even simple things like, writing receipts and accounting or keeping track of all these things, it got in the way of me actually doing the work and doing the creative work. So that's when I approached my brother. He joined me on board, and I and I find that what's great about that. I mean, obviously, you want to work with somebody that I guess you trust and you feel comfortable with, because I never really have to worry about that kind of stuff. Like it's basically ever since I've been working with my brother, I can dedicate, I guess, a lot more time. Doesn't mean that I still don't do some of those things or worry about like a business strategy or advertising or marketing myself, but I find that most of the time I do spend just doing the things that I really love doing and that I think I'm good at. Whereas my brother, he's good. He's also a very creative person, but I would say he's a lot more talented than me when it comes to the business side of things, and especially when it comes to equipment. I remember for the longest time, I used to be the kind of guy that I know a lot of guys out there are. I used to be all about the gadgets, and I used to spend a lot of money on the cameras and all these things, and having the equipment is good. But I remember it got to a point where, especially when I started doing this full time, like sort of running my own production company. After like the first 2, I believe, years, I mean, I had enough paid work, but at the end of the day, I was actually losing money, and it's because I was spending more than I was really bringing in. And that's kind of what my brother was really good at. My brother came in and he kind of looked at it and said, well, maybe you shouldn't be upgrading to this new, tripod or a new camera or new lenses and things like that, because at the end of the day, it's not a big enough payoff for you. So it might make sense for so-and-so projects to, let's say, rent the equipment. And that was actually something that, like, before I didn't really do. I would buy everything. And so, I guess having that kind of person who's good with finances and just business side of things is good to kind of keep you, keep you on a short leash. Because I remember that there was a few times where I would get into arguments with my brother, and I would tell him like, no, but I really need it. I was kind of convincing myself that I need to spend on so-and-so gadget, and my brother would be like it doesn't make sense business-wise. It just does not make sense. I know it's a nice thing. We'll rent it. We'll use it for a project, and that's it. And we'll make money at the end of the day, and we, which will allow us to continue to do this, further on. And that was a great advice. And I gotta admit that, for the last, I think it's been sort of full-time working with my brother. It's been 6 years now. I've gotten into this group sort of where I no longer look at camera equipment, especially like the same way that I used to look like it before. It's sort of I look at it purely as a tool for my business, as opposed to just like this cool gadget that I can play with. And also I think it made me more creative in a way, because sometimes, like I said, we just could, a certain budget for the project would not allow us to have certain equipment, and I had to sort of think outside of the box. How can I still make that project creative while still staying within the budget? So, yeah.
Well, and that's a great takeaway, and that's a big thing that we preach over here at Create. And that was a big mistake that I made, and you've just said you've made, and I know many, many, many others have made, is that idea of gear. All I do is focus on gear, and even the aspect of, I'd love for you to talk for a second about, a lot of guys keep going, well, my work's not good enough to charge more. Oh, I don't have this piece of gear, I can't charge more. But what we always tell people is, it's not the gear and the technology that's going to allow you, or the video even, that's going to allow you to charge more. A lot of us have already reached the level that our work is of quality. But we just don't have what one guy in the chat mentioned, the guts to charge more, so we make all these excuses. For you, what's that thing, what's that process when it comes to what you charge? I think that'd be something that a lot of people would be curious about.
Well, I usually don't even, when I talk to clients specifically about, let's look at music videos. I'll get a client calling me in, and I do get a lot of times people, telling me straight up, oh, I want you to do a music video for me, and I want to shoot it on the Red camera, for example, Red Epic. And what I right away tell them, and I guess I don't know whether I'm too cocky or something, but that's the way I feel is I'm not afraid of losing that job. I'll just straight up and tell the client, don't worry about the camera. Let's worry about the idea. Because it doesn't matter what you shoot the video on. If it's not a good idea, it's not going to be a good video. And I did have a few times a client where, that was so stuck out on just using a certain kind of camera. And I tried to work with him, but within that budget, it just did not make sense. And I told him honestly, I can't do this project and make it look good because we're spending all the money that you have on the camera, and we're not putting anything good in front of the camera when it comes to locations, props, all that stuff. And I told them, so I can't do anything good. If that's how you want to do it, I think you should go with another company. And I did have people go and say things, but I find it I'm better off in the end because I don't end up producing this kind of work that just I don't end up producing cheap-looking work as opposed to at least with every project I do try to come up with something original or something just visually interesting. And I mean, just because I've worked on bigger budgets, like I've done big productions where we had all the toys you can think of. We had permits to close up the streets and control traffic and huge HMI lights and things like that. But that doesn't mean that just because I've done a project like that I'm not that I won't do something that, for example, involves only a camera. Actually, there was a music video I did, which was I believe in November of 2012, where a friend of mine, another YouTuber, Young Lee, he basically got had this new music band that wanted to do a music video. They're kind of I think it was one of their first music videos they were releasing, and he's never done a music video himself. So he called me up. I was in New York at the time. He called me up and said, Tom, I would want you to co-direct this video with me. I was like, okay, well, what's your idea? Told me the idea. I loved it, and then I just right away asked him, okay, so what's the budget that they're offering? And I think the budget for that video was something like $1,500. It was very little. Well, very little for me, but I remember, I told him, like, I like the idea, so if we can make it work, and because I literally have to spend most of the money will have to go on me commuting because I have to go from New York to Toronto. So I was able to shoot the video with him, and we shot it just outside of Toronto. And that I remember at the end of the day, I told him, really the only thing we can afford is you take your camera, which has a Canon T2i, whatever lenses you have, and we have no lights, no permits, we can't get any street permits, and so we're gonna have to make that idea work within that. And I remember like he looked at it, he I guess he's the kind of guy who doesn't have a problem working like that. So he looked at it and he just said, yeah, I'm sure we can do it. And you know what? We went, we shot it, and it was literally just me and him. We had nobody else helping us, and then the artist and then I think the management team came out. There was no catering on that day. There was not, it was like so bare bones. I felt like I was, in high school again, doing little videos with my friends. But it actually turned out really cool. I think it's like one of the music videos that I'm really proud to be involved in. And like I said, and it was shot on the Canon T2i. And then when people ask me later on, like, well, what camera did you use? And I tell them, a lot of times people don't believe me. And especially maybe it's because, they've seen some of my work with, like, let's see, the Red Epic. And they ask me, like, well, why wouldn't you use the Red Epic? And it's like, well, because we couldn't afford it. It didn't make sense. And so, yeah, and so we shot it with the equipment that we had. And like I said, and we had to be, it forced us to be more creative because we had to work out some of the problems that otherwise maybe we would just solve it technically. But we had to think of it sort of like, okay, how we're going to shoot it to make it look interesting. And we realized, first of all, we got to shoot the whole video handheld. And because of that, I think also the whole style of the video looked different, but I think suited the final look of the video too.
It's perfect.
But that's kind of how I do it. And when it comes to just, yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when it comes to like just like like I said, and generally when a client approaches me, I'll usually have a sort of a set price that I think is comfortable to charge. But that doesn't mean that I won't, like I said, I'm not flexible. But I'll just right away tell them like, this is what it's going to cost. Let's say to just shoot it on this camera and with lights and to get like one location. Just kind of quickly figure it out, and that's just basically by looking at you can go to any company like a company that rents equipment and just see how much does the equipment cost, how much that location is going to cost, and then whether you want to charge $400 or $500 or $1,000 for yourself for the amount of work. That's kind of what I'll include on top of that, and that's what I tell the client. And usually when I tell clients, usually clients are like, well, I want to get a better deal. And then you have to sort of negotiate with them. But it's, I'll really, I try to never basically, I guess, and I always convince the client that the equipment is not really something that what they should be spending most of the money on. That equipment is really the last thing, especially because right now, even those, the simplest cameras like the Canon T2i, they can deliver quality that's good enough for television or for online work, where it's really, like I said, I think it's better to spend that money on an interesting location or costume, props, things like that.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And that's the thing, guys, is everybody takes for granted. I love when you take, like, I have a glide cam demo reel, and I remember that because I had actually bought one of the full Steadicam rigs, but I didn't end up really hardly using it, and I sold it and everything. But then the majority, I'd say 98% of my glide cam reel, well, Steadicam reel, was put together with a handheld glide cam 2000. And I had people going, oh my God, I got to get this $8,000 Steadicam flyer rig and all this full vest to do shots like that. But yet I was on, a $300 to $500 handheld rig producing shots that looked like it was on that. So it's all the mind. What do they call that? Like a placebo effect. You're thinking one thing, but it's really another, and people think that you shoot things on a red, so they see a video that's shot on an $800 camera and think it's shot on a red just by circumstance, Yeah.
So, and actually, that's one thing. That's one thing I do when I do talk to clients, and I try to convince them that it's better maybe to shoot on so and so camera. It's like I'll try to basically, because I find that if you just try to dictate to a client, it's not a good thing. Obviously, you want to make it seem like they're the ones that kind of arrive at the idea. So what I'll usually do is when a client, especially if they approach me right away and they say, oh, I want to shoot on so and so camera, I'll just kind of show them like a certain video that I've done, for example. I'll just show them that video as an example, and I'll say, is this sort of the look that you're looking for? If they look at it, and a lot of times they'll look at, for example, specific, like I said, the video that I've done, and they'll be like, that's exactly what I want. This is what I'm talking about. Then that's when I'll tell them, oh, that's great, because I shot this on the Canon 7D. And then they'll be like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. It's like, wasn't the Red? I'm like, no, it's the 7D. Oh, okay, yeah, so let's shoot on that. And, and it's sort of like, it's finding a sort of a sneaky way, but a way to convince your clients sort of arrive at the same conclusion that you want them to arrive. Because I find that, like I said, sometimes the equipment can get in the way. Like a lot of times I know people are hung up on those really high-end cameras, and even though I have access to those, like I said, I don't use them actually most of the time. Just like you said with your glide cam, because they're so big and bulky and they're expensive, and it is a big risk, and especially when you're doing these videos where you got a run and gun kind of thing, and let's say you don't have permits and stuff, you don't want to be hauling around this huge camera, huge expensive lenses, or just leaving your camera bag on the side, because if it gets stolen, a Red Epic lens, one of them costs like $50,000. My 7D, my whole kit cost me like $3,000. So, it's a huge difference. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey guys, we're going to take his questions. I've got like one more thing for him. Guys, if you're on expertinterrogations.com, or I just put in the chat too, if you're really curious about the business side of things and training, this is brought to you by Create Insights. This is the hat, and we offer weekly training. And there's actually a great training that we put together that on that page, if you click training resources, if you click the live training link above this call, that's going to take you to a sign up, and you can sign up to get access to our free training call. It was like a 3-hour call. We did 45 minutes of training, then we did like 2.5 hours of Q&A. So you guys should definitely check that out. I think it'll be very helpful. It's free to you guys to check out. A couple things, Tom. One, marketing, and you can keep this a short answer because the second one might be a little longer, and I want to get to the questions. Do you find that now you're at a point where most things are word of mouth? Do you feel like you can stay busy without having to actively market, or are you still actively going out there and trying to market yourself?
I always market myself. I mean, maybe I could stop, but I just find that if you stop, you kind of, you might not see right away that you're kind of, losing the I guess, the exposure. But when you do realize, that people are not calling you as often, all that stuff, I find that that's already too late. So before I even ever get to that point, I always try to find a way to just basically find as much exposure as I can, whether it's, coming up here and doing an interview with you, or whether it's, putting out videos on YouTube, and just giving out free information. But at the same time, it is a way of marketing myself, because it's, I'm showing myself, showing my work, and I find that a lot of times, people who watch my tutorials are not really people who are interested in learning how to do stuff. But I've actually had people call me and say that, they've worked with other really talented people, but they want to work with me because they said you seem like a cool, down to earth guy. Like I've seen your tutorials, I like how you talk. I would want to work with you, and that in itself can be a thing. Or sometimes people just come across a little example that I'm showing, and it's like something that I guess they want to do in their video, and they'll call me up and they'll be like, okay, I want you to do that same thing that you did in your tutorial, for me.
So what's been your biggest marketing asset? Do you feel it's YouTube? Do you feel it's, the different videos you've done from?
Yeah, YouTube for sure is has been the biggest by far, and I mean, but it's not just uploading videos to my channel. I find that like I said, like working with Daystorm or working with Mr. Guitarman or like other high caliber people on YouTube and doing free work for them for their channels. That is a huge thing. But I guess in general, just getting the exposure. Like for example, I've gone to a few of these sort of live shows, whether it's or like meetup events and things like that, because you never really know when you're going to meet somebody. Somebody that that might call you up for your next job, and that's another thing. Is like for example, I'm going to bring up my buddy Young Lee, another YouTuber. He's also got like I think 100,000 subscribers right now. Really talented guy. He's a guy who, when I met him in 2010 or no 2011, he hadn't done pretty much like he did pretty much zero videos. He was a guy who knew nothing about cameras and things like that. And I know that a lot of times when especially people with some experience, when they meet people like that, like people kind of new in the business, they have a tendency to sort of turn away and be like, whatever, you're a rookie kind of thing, I try to be open to everybody. And in the case of Young, for example, I remember I met him at one of these meetups. I think it was a YouTube or Google meetup in Toronto. And right away, I guess what kind of struck me is just he was a down-to-earth guy, cool guy. But he had some cool ideas. Now, he wasn't, nowhere near where he is right now. But just so happened that his ideas is what got him jobs, a really big, paying jobs a year from, after we met. And because he knew me and he, and we sort of built a little, friendship, he was, he right away just called me up to hire me for those jobs simply because he felt like I was the guy who could technically deliver that work. And a guy that I guess you respected. So that I right away I see the value in that, and it's sort of like the same thing as like people who go to film schools. A lot of times people ask me, should I go to film school? I don't want to say yes or no because I think what you're going to learn in film schools, maybe the technical aspect, maybe I think you can learn it a lot faster, more efficiently online now or by doing tutorials. But what's great about film school is just meeting the people. And especially if you network. If you're going to go to film school, you got to network because you never know which one of those, other students is going to make it big, or maybe, maybe they won't be a big director or won't be very creative, but they'll be in a position to hire you for the next job.
Absolutely. Networking and building relationships is probably a bigger asset than almost, knowing how to do the videos. You know what I mean? And people, people look down upon that, but building that, ability to network and build relationships is probably the most important thing that people can do above and beyond learning all the technology, learning how to edit, learning how to shoot. That's all important. Yeah. But if you don't know how to build relationships, you're the epitome of a starving artist. You're that guy who makes amazing videos, but nobody knows about. So one thing left, and guys, again, we're going to take his questions, but get him in right now because I'm going to have to stop him pretty quick because the time's been flying by. There's a bunch of men here. I want to be respectful of his time. But the final thing, a lot of people talk all the time about, I only take on the kind of jobs I love. I don't work on things I don't want to do. I just work on, the kind of projects I want to. Do you feel that you're at a point where every type of job you do is one that you're pumped about doing, that you're passionate about doing, and you have the ability, you have enough coming in that you have the ability to say no to things that are more than just money? You're not just doing it for the money, and that's really a hard separation sometimes. It's not, so talk about that for a second.
I am at that point. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't end up doing work that I sometimes resent or I don't have a good time on simply because you misjudge the project. But if a client, like I said, if a client calls me up and they offer me, like I said, that's why a lot of times I don't even ask for the budget right away. I kind of want to see what their idea is. If I don't like the idea, if it's something, sometimes I might like the idea, but I just don't think I'm the guy to do it. Like, I don't have a vision. Like the way I work as a director is I kind of have to, if somebody tells me an idea or if I read a script, I have to right away visualize it in my head. And if I can't do that, I usually just, I'm straight up about it and I tell the client like, I don't know if I'm the guy for it. And so like I said, sometimes maybe I've passed on some really big projects. But I try to do it in a respectable way, again, without burning any bridges, because you never know. That same person might call me up again for another interesting job. So that's kind of what I think. But I did end up, every so often I do end up doing projects where I think it's exciting. It's exactly what I want to do. But then you end up working on it, and you kind of go, holy crap! This is not what I want to be doing. So.
I know what you mean there. All right, guys. Well, here we go. We're gonna take your questions. We've probably got maybe 20 or so minutes left with Tom. So get a few more in. We're gonna try to get as many in as we possibly can. Again, guys, if you're loving this, I still have it up on the screen. I'll put it in the chat because I'm gonna take it away here in just a second. But if you guys would be so awesome to tweet this show, to share it on Facebook. Guys, there's 91 of you live. In case some of you are just listening, there's about 90 of you live on this call right now. And I hope you're loving this. We want the word of mouth to spread. We want more people to know about this so more people can benefit. And in case you guys don't know, there's replays available of all the old calls we've done. So if any of you guys are new and haven't seen this before and this is your first show, put it in the chat too if this is your first show and you're loving this. But check out the replays. We have all the old calls, and below those calls there's a transcript, so you can actually see every question that was asked, and you can go straight to that timestamp in the call, so you can see that. So it's really fun. We have fun here every week doing this. We're excited to have Tom on today. It's been a great call so far. We've got a lot of more awesome people scheduled here coming up in the future. So rock and roll, let's get to your questions here. So we've got Leif. He says, I live in a smaller market. I've stayed away from music videos because I just don't imagine any bands in my area have money to finance a decent budget. How do smaller bands make the numbers work to invest in a music video?
I think it just comes down to you convincing them. I think, okay, there might be some places, certain places, certain towns where it is so small where if it's a band that's, that's not really doing things seriously and they're just going to play for, in front of their friends or relatives, or on a local festival, and they're never really going to like step up their game and try to make money, it's obviously not the kind of band that you want to be approaching. But if you see a band that, you're sure that they're somehow making money, they're supporting themselves by their music, but maybe not all the way, but they're kind of getting there. You just have to find a way to convince them that this extra exposure or doing this sort of a music video is going to really help them, and that you can find work. But sooner or later, if you want to be serious about doing music videos, you do want to go to the places where there's more of that type of work. So, it's not always LA. I know a lot of people think like, oh, I want to go to LA. LA, I think, is the problem with LA is that it's almost too many people there in one place. So you're really competing against too many people. But it's, you do want to look around something, eventually for a place where you're gonna find more of those kind of jobs.
Perfect. And guys, we just got one, and he's on the call. Tony, I just put a message back to you. If you guys have experts or other people or YouTube stars or anybody that you'd like to see and get their insight into the video professional space and how they're doing things, use the suggest an expert box above and submit that so that we can get your suggestions so we can get those people on. I love reaching the unreachable. And so that's something I've prided myself on in the work I've done and now bringing this to this show. So let's keep moving forward. But Tony, I hope I'm saying it right. I don't know if you know Tony Real with Next Wave DV.
I know him actually. Yeah.
I might be saying that wrong, but he said he'd love to be on here, so we'd love to have you on in the future, my friend, and we'll definitely connect here real soon. I got to fill some dates up. So, all right, we've got Sean. I'm not quite sure how to say it. Brescher. What's a good package deal or person to design animation graphics for the beginning of my videos, corporate, wedding, or business?
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that question because I don't do too many corporate or wedding videos. But I would say video blogs. For example, there's a website actually that I believe I did a video about them. I'm actually going to do probably a tutorial about them in the future, where it's called videoblogs.com, and they just have a lot of stock, footage, graphics, music, sound effects, that kind of stuff. And I know their library is really growing, and it's subscription based. So you pay, I believe, monthly, or you can get a yearly membership, and you can download as much as you want. But they have a lot of sort of like generic stuff. But I would say if you really want to take your brand to the next level, maybe not at the beginning, but once you start getting enough work where it's enough money coming in, it's good to invest that money by hiring a talented graphic artist and sort of come up with your own little library. Like if you're going to do corporate videos or wedding videos, come up with something that has that, your company logo, that has something specific, and it's going to cost you more money. But I think, there's a lot of talented people online that you can find, like especially if you go to mandy.com. That's a great website to find really talented animators, graphic designers, and just post it up there and say, I have a budget of, I don't know, $1,500 or $2,000, and I want to do a bunch of, animated graphics for my video production company. And I'm sure you'll find people. So.
And I know that, you and other YouTubers are big about helping people on budgets. Believe it or not, Fiverr.com, if any of you haven't heard of Fiverr, Fiverr.com is a place where, quite frankly, you'd be surprised at some of the things that you can get on there for relatively inexpensive, if you're on a budget. Obviously, if you've got more than a few $100s to spend, then you probably want to go somewhere else. But if you're under the $75 range, you can probably get something created on there that'll be simple and effective to get you started, and then once you utilize that, you can kind of move forward from that. So put that in the chat. We put all these links that we're discussing are in the chat, guys, in case you're just listening. Lawrence F. Nemo, Tom, is there any suggested method to get a script funded for production?
Like for a feature film?
Lawrence, if you're on the call still, be a little bit more clear of what type of production you're talking about.
Like a documentary film or a feature, like a fictional feature film?
See if he's still on the call. I don't know if he's still on the call. Lawrence is still on the call. Lawrence, we'll have to pass. He'll give you an answer to what we think. But if you're there right now,
if you want, I can give you I can give sort of a more generic answer. Yeah, I mean, if you have for a feature film, fictional story, really the first thing you want to do is get somebody attached to it, like some big name, and that's what I'm talking about. Doing it sort of the Hollywood way. There's no way, like it almost doesn't, in Hollywood I noticed that it almost doesn't matter how good your idea is. If you don't have somebody attached to it, somebody that's basically going to make that project, profitable to a studio, nobody's going to look at it. No producer's going to look at it. So you kind of want to, you can try to approach certain big producers or actors. And they might not necessarily be A-list actors, maybe B or C actors, but somebody who's recognizable, whether it's in television or things like that. Get it in their hand, and you'd be surprised. There's so many people that are accessible. Usually you want to go through their agency, so you can go like imdbpro.com. You can go on there, get a paid membership, and you can find out who's represented, like which actor is represented by what agent or agency, and call them up, tell them what your script is, try to get them to read it, and literally try to get them a letter of commitment from them. So literally all it's going to say is that so-and-so actor is committed if this film goes into production. Once you have that letter, then you can start calling up big shot producers or even studios directly and try to get a pitch meeting. Now, like I said, that's the way to do it. Doesn't mean it's easy. You're going to get a lot of times where you're going to call up an agent or whatever, and they're just not going to want to talk to you. You just gotta do it. Be persistent, like we were talking about it before.
Perfect, my friend. All right, Chris Cuvedo, I think I'm saying it. Sorry if this sounds super amateurish, and that's something I want to say real quick, guys. We try to keep things so positive over here. You don't ever have to worry about I'm a super amateur or you're super veteran. It doesn't matter. Anybody in between is welcome over here. We're as nice and kind, and we ban people who aren't. So he says, sorry if this sounds super amateur, but what is the bare bones minimum you would recommend a beginner needs to own to start his own business? For example, lenses, sliders, etc.?
What's the bird? It's really whatever you can afford. And I know that kind of sounds vague, but honestly, I mean, I've seen people that I know that have gotten to a really big level now that started with nothing, literally nothing, and all they did is like we were talking about before, kind of those relationships where they would call me up and be like, Tom, can I borrow your camera? I have this project coming up. And they're because I respect them, I know that they're going to take care of my equipment. Either I would show up on the set or I would just lend them my equipment. And so literally they started with nothing. If you are going to buy something, I would say a camera, and like a simple DSLR, I would say is good for most applications. So Canon T2i, something like that, or 3TI. Just get a decent camera like that, and that's really what you need to start with. And all those other little things, whether it's Steadicam, sliders, even nice tripod dollies, you can rent that for a project if you really need it. And if your project doesn't allow you, then just work with just the camera and hold it and try to make it look good. And like I was saying before, I've done videos like that, and I still do sometimes videos like that. So, you can for sure do something good with it.
That's perfect. That's perfect, man. That's perfect. Because guys, too many times we go out and we think we immediately need to invest $10,000 to get started, but it's just an excuse. Guys, you can get started with nothing. You can get started with nothing. And
exactly.
Get out there.
And I think that excuse is a lot of times destroys people's dreams, because they, like you said, if you go and you borrow $10,000, buy all this equipment, and let's say that first year you might not have enough work, but you have to pay off those credit cards or those loans. You might end up, eventually just sort of, first of all, resenting this whole thing. You're going to be stressed out. You're not going to be enjoying it, and sooner or later you're going to give up on it, and maybe even have to declare bankruptcy. So I'd say before you ever get into that position, like start off with whatever you have. If you like I said, even if you can't afford a camera, find somebody. I'm sure there's somebody around that will lend you a camera just for that one project, and do it.
That's exactly so true. So true, guys. Go out there and start getting jobs, making money, borrowing things up front, and then as things progress, you can start getting those pieces. I mean, honestly, guys, for the freelance work I've done, if I had to strip away everything right now, I need really, and this is just because this is the kind of work I do, my glide cam, a camera, and like one lens, one that's wide to telephoto, some cards, and a battery. And I could do everything that I get hired for, and I've been hired for upwards of $1,000 a day to shoot with what I acquire from a glide cam, a wide lens, the DSLR, and and obviously there's glide cams and DSLRs all the way from 300 to 3,000 or 8,000, and cameras everywhere in between. But guys, T2i and a battery and a card and a wide lens, and you're going to be set, and for just a couple thousand, but you could borrow that or rent that for a couple hundred. So borrow it up front, do something, and then from there you'll get moving. So all right, Fat Armadillo says, what do you think about YouTube partner networks like Vivo and Fullscreen? What are the advantages?
The advantages, I think, are just networking again. Now, like I said, there could be advantages, could be disadvantages. Sometimes maybe you don't want to it's not a certain, like a lot of these networks, what I found now is not to be too specific and trash any specific networks, but they pretty much farm out YouTubers. They get so many YouTubers to sign up with them, and they're always going to sweet talk you. When somebody wants to sign you up, they're gonna find a way to try to convince you. And I've been approached, I don't know, like probably close to 100 times by many different networks trying to convince me to sign up over the last 2 years. And in the end, I've always resisted it, and it's because I guess the reason why I resisted it is because I feel like at the end of the day, they don't really offer enough of a value for me to give up my creative control. Because even though all of them are going to tell you you're not giving up creative control, you are you're giving up control of your channel. That's one thing. So and the cool thing I think about YouTube is you're your own boss. You do what you want to do. It's your own thing. YouTube doesn't tell you how to do things. But the second you sign up with a network, they don't like something that you're doing, they can shut your channel down, or they can force you to not put out a certain video or remove a certain video because it doesn't fit in with their policy or whatever it is. So that's the thing. one big mistake I see people doing is people sign up with these networks because they think they're going to make more money. Because at the end of the day, all these networks will find, like I said, when they're trying to convince you to sign on, they're going to find a way to convince you that, oh, you're going to make more money with them. But even if you look at this famous case of Ray William Johnson, who got into a dispute with Maker Studios, and not to say that Maker Studios isn't a good network, because I know some people who are with Maker Studios and are happy with them. But like I said, at the end of the day, Ray William Johnson was not allowed to do what he really wanted to do, and financially, he was actually, probably better off doing it, doing things, on his own, and that's why eventually he ended up leaving. And from not my experience, because I never actually signed up any of my channels, but from people that I know that sign up their channels, you'd actually be surprised how not only will you not make more, but sometimes you can actually make less when you sign up with a network. Because at the end of the day, the networks are there because they want to take a cut of your earnings. So like I said, be careful. Don't do it because you think you're going to earn more money by signing. If you're going to sign with a network, really sign because you really think that they're going to help, whether it's like with marketing, they're going to help expose your channel better or things like that.
Perfect. All right, guys, no more questions. We're going to try to just get through the ones that are there right now, and then we'll be finishing things up. So hope you're all enjoying this. If you are enjoying it, I'm going to put it in the chat again. Here's one link that you can quickly use to share on Twitter. Just put that in the chat. If you guys would tweet this or share it on Facebook, that'd be so appreciative. There's 82 of you. If even half of you shared, that would be huge, guys. So just take that 2 seconds to do that. You won't miss anything. And guys, too, there's a replay. So if you're coming in late or anything, as soon as this is over, you'll be able to rewatch this call. And then if you're on expertinterrogations.com, you can rewatch all the old ones we've had. We've had a lot of awesome people on with some great insight that's been really helpful. So you guys can check that out. We also have some training that's available that you guys can sign up for that I think you guys will find very helpful if you're interested in growing your business or growing as a video professional on the business side of things. That's what we try to provide. All right, so not sure. We got Megalomaniac Danny. Does Tom have a manager? And if so, does he find it helps a lot with work? And we kind of answered that a little bit, but if you want to kind of talk about your brother a little bit.
Well, okay, I work with my brother, but he takes care of more of the business side. He's not really my manager. I do have a manager, or manager/agent in LA. Does he really help that a lot? Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, he is there. I mean, like I said, it's good. Sometimes, I have to work a lot in order to get an agent at a decent agency. Because if you get an agent that any no-name agency, you might as well represent yourself. But yeah, he can help you when you're trying to get certain meetings, or if you're trying to, let's say, get your script passed on to some bigger caliber people. But outside of that, I mean, it's going to come down to you creating the work, and because I find as a video producer or director, you got to be the one to kind of start projects up. And if you think you're going to get a manager or an agent and he's just going to bring work to you, you'll be mistaken when you actually get to that point.
And Chris is in the chat saying that there's some kind of app called My Price that helps you calculate your worth as a freelance videographer, and he's asking if anybody tried it out. Nobody can dictate your worth but yourself, but definitely the community we have over here at Create Insights can help you figure out what you could charge, but that's really up to you. No app are you going to be able to type in your iPhone and go, what am I worth? And it's going to throw out some number at you, and that's what you start charging. So
exactly. I would actually say there's for example, a photographer that I worked with on a music video, and I was surprised to find that even though the guy is talented, I forgot his name. I mean, he shot with some really big names. The guy's talented. I mean, there's so many other photographers that I've met who are just as talented, if not more, than this guy. What this guy is great about is first marketing himself or networking with people, and he's gotten to a point where people don't really go to him and don't pay his wages because they want the kind of quality from him, but it's more because they actually want to have their photos taken by his name, by his brand. So if you really, if you work on building your brand, you can get to a point where you can charge ridiculous things. And just to give you an example, that photographer was charging for one photo session $30K for one day, and it was just him and a camera. And I've known people who have a whole team, they have all this equipment, and they're struggling charging, $500 for it per day. So that just shows you when you get to a certain caliber, and that's another thing that I would say with, like, when people say about the equipment and all that stuff, you don't want to be known for, like when you kind of doing your work, you want to make sure that you're slowly building a brand, and you're not really known for, like, oh, around town or whatever, that you're the guy that has so-and-so camera, or has so-and-so lights, all this guys, forget about all that. You want to market yourself so that people know you as the guy who does, let's say, really good comedy videos, or good, action videos, or I don't know, aesthetically they have a certain look. And when you're known for that, it's basically you're gonna be able to charge a lot more. You're gonna have a lot more clients because you're not just, because like I said, there's many people out there who, let's say, have the Red Epic camera or have some really nice, camera crane or a Steadicam. There's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people can just buy that equipment, but nobody can steal that style or that certain sort of brand that you build around your work. So it's really, you should worry about, when you're working on your videos, what kind of a look you're going to give. Another really good example is a guy, again, from YouTube, but he does a lot of stuff outside of YouTube. His name is Mike, on YouTube his name is Mike Diva. And his channel, like, reason why I love working with him, whenever he calls me up, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm down, is because as a director, he's got this crazy style that I've never met any other director who had that style. And it's like a reoccurring thing throughout all his videos, and it's what makes him Mike Diva. So that's why he gets hired. He doesn't get hired because he's got a certain piece of equipment.
That is a great, great, great point, and I live by that too. I mean, I feel that it is the brand, it's you as a person that is so important, because that's what makes you stand out. Because the work, on some level, a lot of people produce the same kind of work on some level. I'm not going to say everybody's the same, but it's the person, and like you said, what you stand for. For me, it was my glide cam, but it wasn't the glide cam. It was the work I produced with the glide cam, and then it was me as a person.
Exactly.
It was those two elements. It wasn't the gear. I wasn't known for, I'm the glide cam guy, or I'm the T2i guy, or the 5D Mark II guy. It was, I produced these epically wide, cinematic looking shots that are super smooth, and I'm super fun to work with. And that's what I became known for, and that's what allowed me to charge. The clients loved it, all that kind of stuff. So guys, definitely, that's a huge takeaway for everybody, to focus on your personal brand, your style, and that's way more important than the gear you have or anything like that. We'll never hear us talk about, you got to make sure you get this, and you get this, and then you'll be successful. Because if you could dump $100,000 today on buying anything you want, that's not going to make you be able to charge anything you want, so,
Exactly.
All right, we're going to skip over this next, or give us 3 points of your pitch. I think Aiden put that in earlier. I don't know if there's something you can say when you pitch a project to somebody, if there's something that sticks out, but I'm not sure fully what he's referring to,
Well,
but that would be...
You mean like if you're trying to get a film financed or something?
Okay, going to pitch a show, he says.
It's a show, okay. First thing I mentioned is sort of what's the target audience for this idea, and why I think it works, with that thing. Then the second point would be like, what's the most original thing about the show? What makes this show stand out apart from other things? And then the last thing is how it's going to make money. Because usually you're pitching it to people who are going to give you money for a project. So, for example, when I've done it in case of web series ideas to some of those networks in LA, that's kind of how I would do it. It's just, like I said, very precise, as short as you can. But yeah, first sort of what's your target audience, then what makes your project stand apart, and then the last thing is why you think it's going to make money.
Perfect.
If those 3 are convincing enough, you're going to get the money. If they're not, you're not going to get it.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to skip over Mega Low Maniac Danny. We've kind of, I think, addressed this. We want to make sure we get through the questions, so I don't want to really repeat this thing about renting or buying. It's definitely, the aspect of figure out where your budget's at and what you really need for something, and try to either borrow or rent up front. And then one thing I suggest, Tom, is always, find those things that are essential to your kit, and as soon as you can afford those, buy those. and that's mainly your batteries,
Exactly.
your card, your main camera. But yeah, so check out the replay if you haven't been here the whole time. But we're gonna definitely we've addressed that pretty hardcore. Chris says, how do you find that balance between buying tech and letting skill lead in the work? Or if it makes more sense, how to strike a balance between craft and tech? If you follow that.
I have to think how to answer that. I guess I never really worry about it in terms of balance. I mean, I just kind of, I always, that's how I always think to start it. You know, whenever I work on any project, I kind of just try to imagine like what are the images that are coming to me, and also what's going to make it look or make that certain project stand apart from other work maybe that I've done or similar projects that are out there already. So I never really worried about equipment or technological aspect like when it comes to like special effects or how I'm going to execute this thing. I just kind of worried about like I said, what's it gonna, how is that project gonna stand apart from other similar projects? And then I try to figure out technically how to do it. I mean, like one perfect example is I did that first video I did, for example, for Daystorm. Like I said, I called him up. I came up with this idea, and I told I told him the idea over the phone. And I remember just because of when I was with him on the phone, he didn't sound excited enough right away. So the last thing I threw in is I told him, I said, and this whole video we're going to shoot in one take, one long take, no cuts. I just threw it in there. I don't know why, but it just came to me. And he's like, oh my God, that's amazing. He goes, okay, let's do this. After I hanged up, I remember I thought to myself, holy crap, how am I going to do this? Because I had no idea how to technically, because the idea that I had was that we're going to mimic all these famous movie scenes. And we're going to go through all these separate things. But I realized that I have no idea how to do this now because he has to change costumes, we have to change locations, all this stuff. But it was actually interesting enough because, like I said, I knew what my budget was, what I allowed myself to spend on it, so I couldn't spend more, and I just had to figure out a way to think. And it was partially I used special effects, creative things like the creative costumes. I had to make up some costumes that you could easily take off and things like that. And then in the end, I made it work. But yeah, I never started worrying about the technical thing.
Perfect. Vincent Whittle says, what have you guys done to get a lot of viewers on your videos?
To get a lot of viewers, either do a project with somebody who already has a big audience, and they're going to bring that basically on board. Like they might sometimes not be the most talented person to work with, but they have a big audience, and with that comes the big audience. Or going definitely like if you're talking in terms of Vimeo or YouTube, go to other websites, because I think a lot of times people forget and they think, I'm just going to put it on Vimeo or on YouTube and that's it. But the videos that go viral on any of video websites are the videos that have been shared a lot outside of, because YouTube. I mean, the internet is so much bigger than YouTube, for example, or Vimeo alone. So you do want to go to. I'll just go to forums or other blogs and things like that have something to do topic-wise with what the video is about. And I'll just email the admin, for example, and I'll just tell them, like, we got this new video. I think the people who are visiting your blog might be interested in it, and a lot of times they might not respond to you, but sometimes they will. They'll post it on their website, and it might make a difference. But yeah, you can't just put a video on YouTube or Vimeo and just think it's going to go viral, let's say, or get a lot of views.
Perfect. That Armadillo says, how much does an art department factor into your pricing and budgets?
In my case, not much, because I like to handle that part like mainly myself. I guess I do. I mean, I do spend when it comes to actually physically spending on a certain location or props and things like that. That is actually probably, I would say, sometimes it's more than the actual production itself, as in the people that that I hire or the equipment and things like that. Like as an example, I mean, we shot a video one time where just for the location alone we paid, I think it was $3,500 just for one day of shooting there. Whereas the video itself, the whole budget for the video was $7,000. So basically, half of the budget went just for that location. That shows you.
Interesting. All right. Joseph Culligan says, do you write down ideas for music videos you see?
Like other people's music videos, like if I see.
Let's see here. He says yes. Micah, what's going on?
Okay.
Yeah. He says
No, I
yes.
try not to like. Not only that, but I try not to watch too much of other people's videos or music videos, because I think if you're or at least a few days before, I know I have a project and I have to come up with a concept, because I find if you're watching too much of other people's stuff right before you're coming up with your own ideas, even though you don't mean to copy, you're gonna end up copying. Basically, like you're gonna be inspired, you could say, by other people's work, which can be good or bad. But you know, if you can come up with completely original ideas, and if you want to come up with original ideas, you want to sort of stay. You don't want to be influenced by other people's music videos. You want to be influenced maybe by listening to certain type of music, or watching certain paintings, or I don't know, reading a certain book or something. But you don't want to be watching another person's music video, because most likely your music video is going to be very similar looking.
Perfect. And so he says, how do you deconstruct what you see as ideas you make happen?
For me, it's easy because I kind of see everything almost as like maybe because I worked as an animator, I kind of see it almost as storyboards in my head. If I have an idea or a script that I'm going through, I'm reading it, I right away can kind of just, I see almost like these, storyboard panels of like, there's a shot like this, shot like that. So literally all I have to do is just, I grab a pencil, piece of paper, and just start drawing it down so that I don't forget. And but I try not to usually do that. Like I'll do it, at least do it 2 times. I go through that script or whatever it is, that idea 2 times. Like I'll do it once, and then a day or 2 days later I'll try to do it again, because I find that when I settle on the first idea that comes to my head, it's not always the best idea. Sometimes it is, but it's sometimes it's just too simplistic, I guess.
Perfect. Cruising along here. Just a few left. Almost done, guys. All right. Chris says, any comments on structuring a story or an idea? Do you have a method that you prefer? I'm familiar with Still Motion's approach, but I'm curious on how you go about the early stages of pre-production.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about more about writing the script itself than pre-production. If it's the idea itself, like I said, I don't. Kind of hard to say, because so many projects I've done, the ideas have come from so many different ways. Like I do have a little notepad, and I'll try to if you have it here, I'll try to usually just write down ideas, and I kind of carry it with me. And sometimes it might be like a simple, stupid little thing, or a lot of times, for example, on my cell phone, what I do is I'll just like, when you're having a conversation with your friends, for example, you're at a bar or something in a restaurant, and somebody says, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if so and so happened?" And people usually just talk about it and then they forget about it. What I tend to do is I'll write like literally a sentence and on my phone, and I'll email it to myself or text it to myself, so I know I have it there. Or I'll write it in my notepad, and I kind of keep these ideas around. So whenever I'm starting a new project or a new music video, and I need an idea or a library of ideas, that's usually where I go, and I'll kind of flip through all my old notes, and sometimes I'll look at something that at that particular moment might spark my interest. But then, I've done also projects where people came up to me and told me, like, I want to do a video about so and so, and it just right away sounded like such a cool idea. Like they might mention one sentence or something, and then I start building it from there. So it really comes from. I mean, like, I think it's hard to sort of say where these ideas come from or how you really, I guess, come up with ideas. I hope I answered that question. Okay.
All right. Perfect. Tony says, if the client has no idea of budget, then what is the next step?
If they have no idea what the budget is, then try to charge us as much as you can, or try to convince them to pay as much as they can. Because like you were saying before, it's all about convincing them. If you can convince them that you're worth, let's say getting paid $30,000 for one day of work, why not, right? Do it. It just comes down to I guess being a good salesman, without really seeming like you're too much just about the money, because that can also turn off people. So, but it's hard. I mean, I'll usually just tell my client, this is the bare minimum that I can do this video for. Like that's the bare minimum, and it's going to be okay. But we can make it that much better. Let's say we have a better location or so and so, or we can afford to shoot it for two days and things like that. But then I'll tell them that's obviously going to be extra money.
Perfect. All right. Tony, again, he says, if a client wants filming for only a few hours, how would you charge this out?
Usually, I'll say that like I have a daily rate and that's it. That's the lowest that I'm going to go. And if a client says, well, but I only need you for a few hours, I'll basically tell them, like, unless you can guarantee me more work, it's not worth my time to come down for those few hours. So or even better way to do it is don't even offer an hourly rate. Just offer, like I said, this is your rate and that's it. And the client doesn't even know then, like, oh, well, if I shoot for 2 hours versus 3 hours, is that going to cost me more or less? It just they kind of know, okay, they have you for a day, and whatever that day takes, they just make it worth your while. And I've actually this way. I mean, I ended up sometimes going for jobs where, like I said, client didn't even know exactly how long it was going to be. But let's say I showed up and talent didn't come through, or location had problems, and we ended up only shooting for half the day or 2 or 3 hours. But I still got paid, what I felt like I should get paid, because obviously if you're going to take work for 2 or 3 hours in that day, it's hard for you to schedule any other type of work on that same day. So you kind of have to make it worthwhile for you to get paid for a whole day of work.
Well, and would you say that you do more work as a freelancer than you do as you take on the whole job from start to finish? You're being hired in just to be that one element out of a production. So when you show up that day and you leave, you're more or less done, as opposed to you got to take it from pre-production, production, post-production, the whole thing. Is there a balance there?
Well, okay, that's the thing. Is like if I'm doing this kind of projects where I'm running the whole production pretty much, like my production company is producing it, and I'm coming up with the concept, pre-production, production, post-production, then I don't really worry about hourly rate. But if I was sometimes more so in the past than right now, when I was hired for, let's say, to come out and as a cinematographer just for a few hours to film something, I'll still, it doesn't matter, like I said, if it's 2 or 3 hours, I'll pretty much charge something that I know is worthwhile for me for a whole day of work. Because it's difficult. Like, if you've already done something, if you're going to go out and travel to the location and all that stuff and do it for 3 hours, it's hard to schedule another type of work that's going to fit within that schedule on that same day.
Perfect. All right, let's see here. Jim Knowlton, do you make money off of YouTube ads on your videos? How much does YouTube pay per ad view?
Yeah, I do make money. It's not a lot. And how much they pay, it's hard to say. Even if I wanted to give you, like, even if there was like a straight figure, I couldn't tell you, because there's an agreement that YouTube has with their partners. But I'll just tell you it's not a lot. Well, at least at the level that I'm at. It's a kind of like, it's not a good supplementary kind of extra income that allows me to sometimes concentrate on YouTube. But the reason also why I say why I can't really give you a specific per view is because it really comes down to your CPM. CPM is cost per million, or million is actually translates to 1,000 views. So YouTube doesn't pay you for 1 view; it pays you per 1,000 views. So you have to have a certain number of thousands of views, and they'll pay you for that. And the CPM, that's the rate that they're paying you, it can change. I mean, when I started out, I remember I was getting CPMs of, like I was like 20, 30 cents. So I would get 1,000 views and I would get 30, and I'm not joking. I remember when I started doing YouTube, I would get paychecks for like $1.20 after a whole month of, of work. And it's kind of funny, but that's kind of how it works. And as you get bigger, because really what dictates your CPMs is, as your channel becomes more popular, what happens is more advertisers who buy out basically advertising spots on YouTube will basically be outbidding to put advertising on your channel specifically. So as your channel becomes more popular, and especially when you have a more sort of a dedicated channel to, let's say, a female audience of so-and-so age, or let's say, like my channel, which is filmmakers of, so-and-so age and kind of interest, what's going to happen is those advertisers who, let's say, are advertising, film equipment and things like that are going to be more fighting to get their ads on my channel, and because of that, then that drives the CPMs because they're just bidding. So they're saying, I'm willing to give Tom, $2 for, 1,000 views. And somebody else says, oh yeah, I'm willing to give him, $5. And I've known people, my CPMs, I think the highest they've ever gone was like $7 or $8 per 1,000 views. But I've known people on YouTube, I don't want to say who because out of respect, but I've known people who they were getting, $20 CPMs, and they're getting millions of views. So, at the end of the month, they'll be getting paychecks of, $20,000, $30,000. And that's not actually on the high end. There's some other YouTubers that I don't know personally, but I've heard that they're getting paid $100,000, $150,000. So you can definitely make YouTube advertising and YouTube AdSense be a full-time thing, but it's not easy because you're talking about millions of views, like monthly, like literally getting like 50, 60 millions of views monthly. And if you've ever done YouTube, you'll know it's not easy to do. I might average right now 500,000 to 1 million views per month. And back in the day when I was doing like in 2011, 2012, I was doing more of those viral videos, like those Angry Birds and stuff. Sometimes I would get more views, but it's not an easy thing to have viral basically videos.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, and we're getting a lot of people who said they're new to the show today. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Anybody that's new, if you put that in the chat, I'd love to know where you found out about us. That'd be super helpful because I do a lot of advertising and do a lot of different things, and I'd love to know where it's being effective. So if you guys would, just let me know that. That would be super, super awesome. And again, if you guys, we got a couple questions left, and we're going to be finishing this off. If you're on expertinterrogations.com and you're loving this, and I'll put the link in there too, just make sure that you sign up. There's a live training you can click, and that's a live training call that we did. It was 3 hours long. A lot of people found it super helpful. Some people were on the call and said that they learned more in an hour than they had at 4 years of film school for the business side of things, because that's what we're all about. So we gave a lot of really helpful tips and advice on that. So on that call, you can find that. I was telling Tom beforehand, there was about 120 people on live, and about 120 of them stayed for 2 hours. And then the other 70 were still on for 3 hours. So you guys will get that for free. So check that out. We'd love for you to join. And so we appreciate everybody that's here. This is so exciting. We're building a great community over here. And so if you guys got friends in the industry who would find this valuable, please share it with them. It would mean a lot because the more it's shared, the more people that can benefit, the more awesome this community. And as you guys saw too, there was a negative guy who's getting kind of stupid in the chat. I banned him. I'm not joking when I have zero tolerance. It's our house over here. We're here to have fun. And so rock and roll. All right, 3 questions left, and that's it, Tom, and we'll let you go. You've been so gracious with your time and very helpful. I think everybody's loving this call today. So let's see. We're going to he's who got deleted. So, all right, so Karik, I think, Chapman says, what's your process for making a short film from concept to creation?
Process. Starts off with an idea. So like I said, ideas come from different places. Once I have the idea, first thing I'll usually try to do is try to figure out, how can I monetize this? Like, how can I make money on this? Or even if I can make money on this, because not to sound like I'm doing everything for money, but you know how it is. At the end of the day, if I was just gonna do art, I would be basically one of those starving artists, which unfortunately I know a lot of these guys who are so talented, probably more talented than a lot of these guys that I've worked with, and they don't make money in the end, so they end up giving up on their dreams. So that's sort of what I work on. I'll try to think of how can I monetize it, whether it's maybe selling certain licenses to to television networks, distributing it to distributors, things like that. Or if I can maybe somehow monetize it, let's say on YouTube, if I think it's a good project that I can put it on YouTube and get at least some of the money back over time through YouTube advertising. Or also if I can get the project financed. Now financing short films especially is really difficult, and the reason is because short films or films in general don't make a lot of money. Like any big Hollywood studio, that's the reason why they do so many big films every year, is because most of those films lose money, but that one film that becomes a hit pays for all of them. That's kind of their logic, and they can afford to do it because they have a lot of money. So when you're a nobody and you kind of have to, do these projects out of your own pocket, try to find people. It could be at the beginning. I mean, I remember my first feature film, for example, that I did was financed partially by relatives, partially by friends who are lawyers or doctors who have money to spare. And I just convinced them, gave them a really good pitch, and said, you're going to get to come out to be on set and things like that. So just whatever way you can find out to finance the project. That's kind of what I worry about next. Once I figure out the financing, then I kind of know already what my budget is, what I can spend on it. And then let's say if I have no financing on it, and I'm financing it myself, I'll just look at my income that month, and I'll kind of say, okay, I can only afford to spend, $500 or $1,000 or $10,000 on that film. And that's what I'll stick to. So once I have my budget, that's when I'll start sort of thinking about, and maybe let's say if I already have a script, refining that script, changing it so that it's something that I know is viable for me to shoot. If let's say I have too many locations that I know I can't afford, things like that, props, and then once I have, so that's all part of the post-production, pre-production. So get all those things in order, do all my storyboards. I always do storyboards, and it's not necessary. Some people don't do storyboards, but I always do it. And then I do also, like things like my equipment list and, my actors, location list, so that I know that every day that I'm filming, I don't lose things, especially if I'm borrowing equipment, because a lot of short films, like I said, I do that I self-finance. So it's very ultra low budget. So I'll try to do it as cheaply as I can. And what I mean by that is I'll borrow equipment from people that I know. And, and I try to be respectful. I don't want to lose things and things like that. So once I have that all of that organized, shooting is sort of straightforward. You go and film it, and then post-production, again, I try to give myself a deadline, because I find that a lot of times back in the day when I did projects where they were kind of my own passion project, you tend to sort of stretch it out and kind of, do it slowly, and then it ends up taking months and months to finish a project, and it's not good. I find it's better to give yourself a deadline and stick to it, and at least try to get that film finished. Maybe that's not going to be the best, film, but at least you'll have it finished, let's say, in a month. And then if you really decide that, okay, I got to give myself an extra month to fix up, let's say, certain shots or certain effect shots or reshoot certain scenes, then you do it, and again, if you can afford it. But if not, then you got to sort of put it away and move on and do other work or other projects. So I try to be sort of very strict, because I find that, like, if you're not strict with yourself, either you'll never finish the project or never even start it, and yeah, like I said, or it can just end up taking way too long or end up costing way too much.
Perfect.
That's how I work.
Quick question: Do you know Alex Icon? He's up near you. They run Luxy Hair. Mimi and Layla. Well, now Layla is not part of it. You ever heard of that YouTube channel? They have about 700,000 subscribers.
No, not really. I mean, not sort of familiar, but
That's all right. Move on. It's all good. Final question here, guys. Final question. Karik, perfect ending, I guess. Where did the name Polka 99 come from?
There's no big magic behind it. Literally, it came down to I had to open a YouTube channel, and at that point, I was opening a YouTube channel purely to show clients, like I was doing music videos and things like that, and I had to show my clients the work. But let's say I was in another city or whatever, or they were on location, so I had to just upload it to YouTube just so I could share it with them, or the work in progress. And I had to create a YouTube channel, and I didn't know, like every new name I tried, like Tom Antos, whatever, were all taken. So eventually, I just kind of got angry, fed up with it, and I just said, okay, I come from Poland, I live in Canada, and I remember I think that my email or something like that was 99, and I literally that's how it came about. So I just put Pol for Poland, Can for Canada, and 99, which was I think something to do with my email at the time. And I was like, okay, it works great. And to be honest, I wish I came up with a better, more creative name, because I had no idea that what my channel was going to grow into. But that's what it was, and I guess I'm okay with it now. There's nothing I can do about it anyway. So.
And how long have you?
It is what it is. I got stuck with that name. It's funny though, because I started a channel in 2006, but I didn't really start doing things like tutorials until 2009. But it's funny because sometimes people think I named it Polkan on purpose. And I've actually had people like for example, I went to a Comic-Con at a convention one time, and I had people approach me and like they met me and they're like, hey, you're Polkon. And I'm like, yeah, my name's Tom, but yeah. It's funny, but kind of, I guess people get used to the name so much that they almost think that's my name. So.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Rock and roll. All right, well, guys, I'll have a few things. I'll let Tom go. I'll have a few things to give you guys some updates so you know how to catch the future calls and everything else. But Tom's been with us plenty long today. We appreciate him being on here. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So, Tom, I'm going to let you go for now, but we'll be in touch here very shortly about some stuff of what we were talking about. And I think people will really enjoy it. So thank you so much, my friend.
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
Cheers. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. All right, we appreciate you all being on here today. If you guys are new to the calls and have never been a part of this, some people are asking about when these calls are. Typically, they're every Tuesday and Thursday. Not every Tuesday and Thursday, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I don't have one planned for this Thursday, but we always make sure we get at least one a week. Haven't failed since, I think, February. Some of the people are talking about Wednesdays. Wednesdays are actually what my partner who's on the chat right now showed up a little late. Chris Simmons. Chris and I do a call every Wednesday for our coaching clients where we do this for 2 hours. You can ask us your questions related to growing your video production company or as a freelancer and those different kind of things. So people are loving it. We've doubled. I mean, guys, it's been crazy. We went from like 700 likes on Facebook to over 7,000 in the last 3 weeks. We've doubled our membership. We have a private Facebook group that is just super positive, super helpful and on fire right now. So I encourage you guys, again, if you're on expertinterrogations.com, to check out the live training link. You can get a great free training call there that we did. You can get the replay of it. We don't do those free ones all the time. Expert Interrogations is our free service to you guys that we provide where we get experts in and you can ask them questions. But we do a call every week where we're just answering your specific questions related to your proposals, your contracts, whatever. So we have a great service going on over there. So you guys get free access to the call over there. There's some goodies when you sign up that you'll get. But definitely check that out. And if you guys want to be notified of future calls, make sure you get on the email list so that we email you right before we go live. I know a lot of you guys have busy schedules and all those kind of things, so we'll email you right before we go live so you know we're live. We'll email you about who's coming up and all that kind of stuff. We won't spam you or anything like that. I know people get afraid of putting in the email. This website is like a side business for you, so how often do you get to film? Personally, actually, Chris, the way I've set things up, and that's the things we talk about, for me personally, out of the two of us, this is something that we do full-time now. Myself personally is pretty much full-time. I've put a great team in place. I started my company when I was 19, right out of high school. I've worked my butt off. I'm 26 now. And so we've shot for Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss and guys from The Buried Life, all sorts of crazy weddings all over the world. So it's been great. But recently, in the last couple of years, I've hired people. So like right now, there's shoots happening, edits happening, everything's happening while I get to provide this to you guys. Most people do this as a hobby or on the side, and that's honestly why you see it come and go, and it's here for a week, and it's gone for 6 months. We wanted to turn this into a business. So this is our free service. The other thing is a paid service. So you got to check that out. But we've had guys really, I mean, just knocking it out of the park when it comes to getting results. I'll send you guys here real quick, and I'll be getting off here in just a second. I'll send you our success stories page so you can watch some of the testimonials and things of the results people are getting in our group. It's been incredible. I mean, guys have, did $25,000 last year and on pace to do over $100,000 this year. Guys closing deals, double what they were because of our expertise in helping them with contracts and proposals and all that kind of stuff. So I encourage you guys to sign up somewhere, and you'll get access to our training, or you get on our newsletter or whatever, so you can be notified of all the fun things we have going on. And talking to Tom too, about different things, about how we can kind of work together on stuff. I'm trying to access some of these really big people so that you guys could get massive results. Charles Soltz here is saying, if you haven't joined the paid group, it's a must. for jamming the big gigs. So guys, we're here to help make a massive impact. Chris is saying, so will there be a call with Chris tomorrow too? I'll definitely be there. Chris Quivero, I'm the Yoda of selling corporate videos. Yeah, Chris is on here. And no, sign up in the email list and send us an email if you have a question, info@createinsights.com. If you guys send an email and you're interested in joining and getting on the call tomorrow, because yes, we will have a Wednesday call tomorrow for 2 hours. If you were to join today, you'd have access to all the old replays. There's over 40 hours of replays. We've been doing calls since last May. We have the private Facebook group with close to 200 people right now. It's on fire in there, super positive. If you send an email and you're interested in joining, we've run some special offers recently, but only for newbies and things like that, I can get you in at a special rate. So send us an email to info@createinsights.com. And Charles is saying, I work on Wednesdays but love the replays. Yeah, guys, I mean, the thing is, you can send us emails and we'll answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So if you can't make calls, you can always watch the replays. There's timestamps. So if we answered your question, you'll be able to see that, go right to that. So Chris Cadvado, sorry for the name, but I joined Create this morning as a paid customer. Perfect. Yeah. If you join Create today, you'll be able to get on, as a on the calls tomorrow. So if you have any questions or concerns, just send us an email about getting on that call. But glad to have you on board, my friend. We'll see you tomorrow. And I hope you guys will join the stuff. And we'll see you on future calls, and we'll let you know when the new calls come up. So thanks so much for being on the call today. You guys rock. And have a great rest of the week. We'll see you guys later. Thanks.